So I've been wanting to end up talking about a certain particular series. This time around is actually going to be a little bit different. Usually I'm always kind of having like a sort of setup on how I want to end up talking about this. You know, there's actually been one series that have always been very conflicting with me to be able to talk about, to be able to get myself out there to be able to talk about it. It was always difficult because I never really knew how to talk about it. And that's actually is the Sonic the Hedgehog series. It's a series that I did end up growing up with as a child, and it's actually a series that I am a little bit on and off about. Usually I kind of end up having like a group of friends that we usually talk about it, and we debate about it, and basically complaining about it, and what we wish that was this way, or what we wish that was that way. But Sonic has been a very big part of my life. The classic games have always been one of those games that I can always end up going back to whenever I can, and it's also something that I can kind of end up remembering how it used to be when I was a child and like all my experiences on all the games. I'm not gonna go ahead and showcase a lot of the videos because right now the video you're going to be seeing, you're just going to be seeing stuff from the Sonic Origins collection, which is a very good collection if you're a very classic aficionado and you want to end up basically playing Sonic 1, CD, 2, and 3, and Knuckles. So unfortunately I don't have any footage of the 3D games. It's trying to record things off of Steam is kind of not really the best, but hey, I mean, you can kind of end up figuring this out where I'm going with this. This is kind of my historic history of Sonic the Hedgehog. So I guess before we actually get started, we already know who Sonic is. We already know the dealio. We know that he's supposed to be kind of like a sort of mastermind versus version for Mario and all that other stuff. But you guys already know that already. If you kind of want more videos of that, you could probably end up looking up somebody else. We had both Sonic 1 and we also end up owning Sonic 2. We actually didn't have Sonic CD mainly because of the fact that you kind of have to understand the Sonic CD. Well, first off, I didn't know it exists. I didn't know Sonic CD was even a game. It also came after Sonic 2, which is funny considering the fact that Sonic 2 ends up taking place after Sonic CD, but what are you gonna do? Timelines is usually always funky, especially if you're a Zelda fan who basically has to deal with that kind of crap. Anywho, Sonic 1 was kind of obviously the first game in the series, and it was kind of different. Like, when I first played it, and I always played it alongside with my brother, I didn't really understand what exactly Sonic was about. All I knew is that he looked cool. He looked cool with his blue his blue texture and everything. His design was just very simple to look at, and he was just his image just popped. It also kind of helped that my favorite color was blue, it still is, and Sonic was just a very interesting character. I always kind of end up repping myself up as being Sonic because, well, he likes to go fast. I used to run as a kid. I can't anymore because my legs don't work as much as they used to. Also, I kind of lose breath easily. It's probably had to do with working out. You guys already know how it be. But I always kind of end up thinking myself as him, mainly because of the fact of how his attitude was. His attitude was more so that he obviously didn't really like things going the way how they should. If you're a bad guy, he's gonna stop you, and he's not like a person of justice, so to speak. He's kind of like your shoujin anime kind of protag, you know, like Naruto or Luffy or any of those other characters. I guess like the best example you can kind of say is like he's like Goku. It's like he's not the champion of justice or anything. No, it's like, you know, if he wants to have a good time with you, he wants to battle with you, he's gonna battle. But the minute you start becoming a little bit of a threat, he's gonna start throwing hands and start to beat your ass. It's like he's kind of like that. But nah, when I played End of Sonic 1, I loved most of the levels, but to be fair, majority of the time we usually just use like the level select code, which basically just allow us to jump into the final zone. Now at first as a kid, I thought that the final zone, basically if you use the level select, they kind of punish you and not giving you any rings. So I was like, alright, so you just gotta do it in one hit, and it's like that was kind of tough considering the fact that you're so used to the rings that not having them in the final stage was very difficult. In fact, I would even go on to say that the final level, the final zone, is actually quite hard. Like, you have a bunch of contraptions that tries to kill you, and then you have a reskin of a labyrinth zone, which nobody ends up liking because it's basically a massive departure from Sonic's speed, because, you know, he loves to go fast, and Green Hill Zone, which is the first zone that you start in, actually allows you to go super fast up until you get to Marble Zone, which kind of ends up basically giving the player the sense of, like, you're not going to be going fast all the time. So here is like a platforming where you have to go ahead and actually slow down a bit, because, you know, at the end of the day, Sonic is maybe a high speed game, but it's also a platformer at the end of the day. So that's kind of the thing as to why I like Marble Zone. Spring Yard Zone was also pretty interesting, as it basically teaches you about a lot of the hazards, because there were hazards in stage 1 and 2, but for stage 3 I feel that they kind of more so give you a lot of either both. It's like a little bit of a between. Like, you got some speed, but you also kind of have to slow down, because if you go too fast you end up getting hit, and so on and so forth. And then you obviously have Labyrinth Zone, that's after Spring Yard Zone, and this stage in particular was kind of a toughie for some players, because while the boss was annoying, and also it was water. You can drown in this stage, and it wasn't really fun to end up dealing with the drowning mechanics, because it was also terrifying with the music that incorporates with it. I'm not going to really showcase it because I never really drowned in the game, but let's just say a lot of people just didn't like the fact that it played this theme, and it was basically not the best whenever you had a water level in every single Sonic game. And trust me, majority of all Sonic games usually ends up having a water stage, and it always ends up incorporating with the wonderful theme that everybody knows and loves, which is basically just a drowning theme.
Ha!
But once we managed to actually beat Sonic 1 and also end up obtaining the Chaos Emeralds, you end up basically getting the introductions to Sonic 2. Now, Sonic 2 is a very massive memory gainer for me for various reasons. One, ends up introducing one of my favorite characters of the entire series, which is Tails, otherwise known as Miles Tails Prower. And yeah, he's a fox. I love foxes. Foxes are literally my favorite creatures and favorite animals in any sort of media, be it in anime, being in cartoons, being in live action shows, whatever. If they're in video games, I love them. In Breath of the Wild, I don't kill them. In Horizon Zero Dawn, I also don't kill them. Heard that their materials are worthless. They're just there just for lulz. And I'm just like, I love me my foxes, man. You can't mess with me. So Miles, being the character that he is, and considering the fact that he kind of thought of Sonic as an older brother, kind of ends up resonating with me as a child, because it's funny too, because at the time I didn't really actually like Tails all that much. I didn't really care for him, but as I grew up, like, obviously you kind of like the main protagonist first, but then as you grow up you start to like the second protagonist or the third protagonist, and you can kind of end up seeing that in a lot of people, where most people kind of like Sonic's other cast of characters more so than Sonic himself, because, like, you know, Sonic is Sonic. Like, it's like Goku is Goku is cool. Whenever you see Sonic and Goku doing things, you're like, oh, that's cool. It's like, what are the other characters doing? Like, what's Vegeta doing? Like, what Tails is doing? What Knuckles is doing? What Piccolo is doing? You know, you kind of usually wonder what the other cast of characters are doing. You already know what Goku and Sonic are gonna do. You already know what they're gonna do. Sometimes they're gonna go super, sometimes they're gonna blast some dudes, sometimes they're gonna spin dash. You already know what they're gonna do. But what are the second characters gonna do? How are they gonna go ahead and one up the main protagonist? Sometimes they don't really do too well, and sometimes they do. And Tails was basically that character for me. He kept up with Sonic, and he can fly. So that was already kind of like a two-fer for me. He can fly. He can fly in the other port, not in the original. In the original Sonic 2, you couldn't fly with Tails, which was so misleading, because I thought, and it's also kind of a placebo effect, or not a placebo, a Mandela effect, because I kid you not, I truly thought when I played Sonic 2, I had the capabilities of flying with Tails. I don't know what it is. Something of a part of my brain is saying that, yes, you can fly with Tails in Sonic 2. But I don't know if I could. I don't remember. And it's so... so weird because I keep thinking that you probably actually couldn't, and I'm just really massively gaslighting myself. And unfortunately, yes, I was the little brother who had to go ahead and pretend that he was playing the game when Tails got off screen so many of times. But I did end up helping my brother out during certain boss fights, aka the Casino Night boss fight. This boss fight we did not like, mainly because of the way how the gimmick is to be able to hit Dr. Robotnik was not very fun. Kind of had to end up spin dashing and try to hit him, and since Tails is essentially immortal, I basically was able to finally end up pulling my weight and fight alongside with Sonic, and it was very interesting to be used to beat the boss without actually taking any damage. There are like certain bosses that I was able to help, and to be fair, it's kind of good because like you get off screened like a lot if you're playing as Tails, so that's either here or there. But one of the biggest hurdles that me and my brother could never do were the special stages. Now, the special stages were kind of interesting because each and every single game usually changes the special stages on how they work. In Sonic 1, they were more so like an acid trip fest where the camera kind of keeps panning. It kind of keeps circling around, and you also got these multiple orbs that allows you to just essentially rotate the platform, or I guess rotate the stage, or speed up the stage, or you know, you just get straight up booted out, which is never fun. Because in the original game, you only get one chance for the special stages in each of the 2 acts that you end up playing. So if you don't get them by the time you reach Scrap Brain Zone, well, you have to go ahead and start the game over to be able to obtain all 6 Chaos Emeralds. Now in Sonic 2, they actually changed it. They basically require you 50 rings, which you still require 50 rings just like in Sonic 1. You just have to reach the end of the stage in Sonic 1. But for Sonic 2, you have to go ahead and hit a checkpoint. When you have 50 rings, you hit that checkpoint and you will basically see a little sparkly under the checkpoint, and then you basically jump into it, and then boom, you're inside the special stage. Now the special stages are quite interesting as they're essentially what a lot of people have called it the half pipe, and it is really a half pipe. Now what's the problem with these? You have 3 checkpoints that you have to get through. The first checkpoint is usually you gotta collect a bunch of rings, which is very easy. The first part is usually the easiest. Now the second part is usually the toughest because they kind of end up throwing bombs at you after a while, especially in later stages where they start to throw a lot more bombs at you. And for stage 3, well, that's self-explanatory. If you don't get past the stage 3 part, once you reach the Chaos Emerald, they won't give you the Chaos Emerald because you don't have the required rings. Now the reason as to why these are tough is more so it's tough for if you're playing the OG game. In the OG game, you only get one chance. And in the OG game, if you end up, well, actually, this kind of also, well, no, actually, no, this does not happen in the Origins version. This actually happens in the OG version. In the OG version, when you come out of the special stage, all your rings are gone. So you have to recollect 50 rings again, so you can end up getting another chance with another checkpoint for the special stage. Now, the other thing is that if you accidentally passed a checkpoint, say for instance, you didn't hit the first checkpoint, but you hit the second one, that first checkpoint would basically have already been triggered, mainly because it's to kind of make sure that you don't just get sent backwards and more so get sent forward. Now, for the Origins collection, they made this special stage a little bit easier. For instance, you now get to keep your rings once you get out of the special stage, and you also get multiple chances. The Origin collection ends up introducing these coins that you can basically get. It's basically like the life system, but not really. You don't really have lives in the Origin collection if you're playing the Origins version of the game. If you're playing the classic version of the game, you're essentially, well, you're playing the OG original of how it used to be played back in the day. But if you're playing the Origins version, you actually get a chance of not having any lives, so you can never get a game over, but you have these coins which you can end up redeeming when you're doing the special stages and get multiple chances. The best thing about these coins is that they stack. So when you beat Sonic 1, collect a bunch of coins, and then you go to Sonic CD, you will end up accumulating those same coin amount, and you can end up basically getting more to a point that you'll probably end up getting 50 lives. For instance, if you're good at ranking lives in like one game, just keep doing that and you could basically end up having almost infinite tries in these special stages. But I didn't really do that all that much because I kind of recorded Sonic 1 off of the PS4, thought something was wrong, and then I recorded it off of the PS5, which I ended up proceeding to have less coins. Sonic CD special stages were quite kind of a very interesting bag to be able to deal with, but I'll get to that until after, me talking more about Sonic 2. The half-pipe section are also pretty interesting, as the way how the coin distribution, or I should say the ring distribution works, is depends on characters that you have. For instance, if you have Sonic only, you have to end up collecting less. If you have Tails only, you can also end up collecting less. But if you have both Sonic and Tails, for some reason, and I think I kind of know why they do this, you have to collect more. And the reason is because of two reasons. You have two characters with you. So, being able to have those two characters with you, the game is kind of thinking that, oh, you probably have an easier time, even though you can't really control Tails, sort of. Like, you can control where he can go, but that's more so dependent on kind of like the little bit of an input lag, but not really. You have like a little bit of a set of time for when Tails will actually move, or I should say, when Tails actually mirrors your move. In the Origins collection, I feel that they made it a little bit better in terms of responsiveness, because I feel that Tails now actually ends up mirroring my moves exactly. Not to a T, mind you. He still has to go ahead. It still takes like a little bit of a second before he actually moves alongside you. But other than that, that's really about it. Once you end up getting all the special stages and the 7th Chaos Emerald, you will basically get rewarded with Super Sonic, which is actually a very obvious nod to Dragon Ball Z. I mean, hell, they have 7 Dragon Balls, they have 7 Chaos Emeralds, except the Chaos Emeralds are the thing that Sonic needs to turn super, while Goku and his friends can basically go super whenever he wants, because, I mean, that's just how it is. Now, I love Super Sonic. I love just how he looks. I love how fast he is. I love how invincible you are for the most part. You can still basically get crushed and die, so that's always fun. And you can still drown, so is he really that super? But whatever. I mean, to be fair, Goku and the others would probably also drown in the water too. I mean, the nice attention to detail, and this is kind of just a random segue. In Sparking Zero, when you're actually charging in the water, and I think this happens in Tenkaichi as well, when you're charging in the water, your charge is actually slowed down. I guess it's mainly because you can't really charge when you're trying to breathe in the water? I don't know. Anywho, in the Super form, you obviously end up getting incorporated with a new theme, is basically the Super Sonic theme, and essentially you get yourself a second ending, which basically has you defeat Robotnik inside the Death Egg, and then you basically fly off with Tails coming right behind you, and then you kind of just see like a little bit of a portrait of Super Sonic. And I like that because I never, as a kid, I never was able to get the special stages done. They were way too hard, and they were just very difficult. Like, I didn't know that Sonic end up just having Sonic alone actually made it a little bit more possible to have less rings that you have to get. I didn't know that, but that didn't matter anyways, because trying to memorize the bomb locations were not that easy, mainly because of two reasons. One, you only get one chance, and two, you usually probably end up having a very terrible memory, because you'll probably take a bit to find another checkpoint to be able to end up getting a second chance. And by the time you get a second chance, you're probably like, oh, I don't remember where all the bombs are located. So yeah, you gotta have like a little bit of a memory game. But yeah, to be fair, these are not my favorite special stages, and I kind of use them a lot in future Sonic games. In Sonic Heroes, they had one, and that was more so a little bit more. It wasn't even a half pipe, it was a whole pipe, and that was even terrible. Like, I like the music, don't get me wrong, but the friggin' mechanics of that just did not work. Like, sometimes your character just stopped on a dime, and it just didn't make any sense. And then they brought it back in Sonic Rush, which was a little bit better, because you just used the touchscreen to be able to navigate both Sonic and Blaze. I didn't really mind that. That I actually did not mind at all. And I forgot what other game they kind of introduced it. I think there was another game, but I can't really remember what other games used the half pipe. I know in Sonic 4 Episode 2, they had it in that. And I think in 3D Blast for the Saturn also had the half pipe as well. Now, interestingly enough, each time they kind of reintroduced the half pipe / whole pipe, they were pretty entertaining for the most part. But they did kind of end up mitigating some of the difficulties by, making the mechanics a little bit less BS. So that's a good thing. I guess, hey, to be fair, I guess they got to do something. The Blue Spheres one that's in Sonic 3 and Knuckles was very interesting. Now there are two things that you can do, and there's probably like even more things you can do in Sonic 2, where you can end up basically putting in cheat codes, which was you guys remember cheat codes? If you're not that young to not know cheat codes, and if you are, damn, y'all have fun DLC, am I right? But no, we used to end up playing around with like the cheat codes, because there was like one cheat code you use to get the level select, and then in the level select you use another cheat code to obtain Supersonic. And I always found that so interesting, because back then, you have to remember, the internet wasn't really as big, and we just had the capabilities of finding these cheat codes out, and it was always so fun. Mind you, the thing about these cheat codes is that I think it's supposed to be kind of like the release date of like a release date or a born year, or to some extent, because I know that that's what the numbers are supposed to represent. Like, I think the Supersonic is supposed to represent the release date or a birthday of somebody. I don't really vaguely remember, but I know that the numbers are supposed to represent something, and they're not just random numbers that you just put for just funsies. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of it for Sonic 2. But one of the biggest things that I will always remember in Sonic was the Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now, this was pretty interesting for me, because I didn't know Sonic 3 existed. I thought Sonic and Knuckles was Sonic 3. I was very flabbergasted when I played the Mega Collection and found out that Sonic 3 was a thing. When I played Sonic 3, I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Is this kind of like is this like Sonic and Knuckles? Because he had the same sprite, and he also looked like, you know, how he looks like in Sonic and Knuckles. So I assumed like, you know, that was it. But then when I looked up on the internet for Sonic Mega Collection for like the unlockable games, I saw Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now I was confused because I didn't know what that meant. So when I unlocked it and I played it, and I was like, oh, this is Sonic and Knuckles. Like, this is essentially the whole game. Because you see, and everybody probably already knows this, Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles were two separate games. They could not be put together, like, because of memory space, or I forgot what the reason was, but I think it was like memory space. Like, they couldn't really put all the levels in the game. But the interesting thing is, if you manage to be able to gain access to the level select that is very difficult in Sonic 3. I should be specific. Sonic 3, it was very difficult to get, because for whatever reason, it's like the developers did not want you to see this. And if you access the level select code in Sonic 3, you will then end up seeing the other levels from Sonic and Knuckles. Now, I wish I owned Sonic 3 and found out about the level select code to be like, what are these other levels over here? And what's interesting, because I think in Sonic and Knuckles, you actually also see Angel Island and Marble Garden Zone or Hydro City Zone. You see these levels in the level select, but you can't play them. You just get the noise when you end up clicking on them, because obviously you're not supposed to gain access to these. They're not in the game. So when I eventually played the Mega Collection with Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I was like, oh, these are all the levels. So this is like an expanded story to itself. It's like, so Sonic and Knuckles was the expansion. And what even made it more interesting, that if you lock on Sonic 2, you also got to play with Knuckles as well. The final boss was a bit difficult, because Knuckles can barely jump, because he's a glider. He's not a jumper. And yeah, Sonic 3 was obviously the very first introduction to Knuckles the Echidna. He's not one of my favorite characters, but I can definitely understand. He has a lot. He's got a lot of fans. It's like, he's basically, I want to say, the Vegeta of the group, because he can go super. Tails can't. Tails might as well just be the Gohan, which is, I mean, hey, I mean, to be fair, probably makes sense. I mean, Tails' super form is probably as broken as both Hypersonic and Hyper Knuckles. Yeah, they had hyper forms, by the way, and when you combine Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So the special stages in Sonic and Knuckles, or Sonic 3 and Knuckles, are actually a little bit different. So unlike in Sonic 1, which you basically have to collect 50 rings to be able to get to the end, to be able to see the giant ring, you jump into it, boom, bam, bang, you're in a special stage. In Sonic 2, you need 50 rings, you need to go ahead and get the checkpoint, jump into the stars, and boom, bam, bang, you're in the special stage. But for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the special rings are actually scattered throughout the stages. You can find them in various obvious spots and also in hidden locations, and these are a lot easier in my honest opinion. The first time when you're playing Blue Spheres, it probably will be difficult because you wouldn't really know what the optimal route is, but when you end up playing it once and you figured it out, I'm gonna be honest with you, they are probably by far the easiest special stages to beat. When I first played them, obviously, when I first played them in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I did struggle, especially since the fact that Sonic 3 had their own special stage and Sonic and Knuckles had their own special stage as well. So what they did was, when you played through Sonic 3's portion, you get their special stages, but then when you played through the Sonic and Knuckles portion, you get the Sonic and Knuckles special stages. So you essentially have to memorize like 14 freaking stages, which is always fun in my honest opinion. I'm lying. Like, I will end up admitting, I love Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but it's probably by far one of the longest classical games in the collection, and also classics in general. So not only do you have like a lot of stages that you get to play this time, you have a total of like essentially 14 zones to play, and that's kind of just a lot. Minus the final stage, you can't really get anything in that one. There are no rings in Death Egg Zone, so don't think, hell, I don't think there's any rings even in Sky Sanctuary Zone or Hidden Palace Zone. You don't really have a lot of chances, so good luck. But they're relatively easy to find, and even if you don't manage to find all the Super Emerald locations in Sonic and Knuckles portion, don't worry, the game does give you at least a leeway of going back to Green Hill Zone, because Sonic 3 actually introduces save files, something that was never introduced in Sonic 1 or Sonic 2. And you already know the reason for that. The game is long. It didn't really make any sense to have it in Sonic 3 because Sonic 3 was also short compared to Sonic and Knuckles, which was also short. They were both short games, so I don't know why the save slot even exists. But to be fair, once you end up combining the two games, the save slots actually make sense because, well, there are 14 zones, and you're a kid. You don't probably have enough time to be playing through all these stages. Consider the fact that probably during that time, yeah, it's cool. But yeah, I like that this was essentially a continuation of Sonic 2, because after Sonic managed to defeat Eggman in his Death Egg Zone, it basically blew up and Eggman had to start from scratch. So he essentially made a Death Egg Mark II is what I want to call it, because in all honesty, we blew up the first one, so this one has to be called a Mark II. But he basically ended up building another one. Now we go to Launch Base Zone and we basically destroyed that one a little bit too, but it lands onto Lava Reef Zone on Angel Island. Well, actually not on Angel Island, basically kind of a separate part of Angel Island, where is basically the volcano area of Angel Island. We're technically still in Angel Island. Angel Island ends up being weird because like you start in Angel Island, but then you kind of just go from different points of places in Angel Island, if that makes any sense. But once you reach Lava Reef Zone, that's kind of when the plot kind of truly unfolds. Eggman finally ends up having the Death Egg fully built, and he proceeds to end up stealing the Master Emerald, something that Eggman wanted over Knuckles because of the fact that he basically ended up tricking Knuckles by saying that Sonic and Tails were coming here to steal the Master Emerald. Obviously, Knuckles believed it because Knuckles is a gullible character. He's not an idiot. He's just gullible. He's very easily manipulated, unfortunately. But once he finds out that Eggman is a liar, he ends up trying to end up getting the Master Emerald back. Unfortunately, he's not able to because apparently whatever machine Eggman was rocking is it's not able to be destroyed. I do not know why. It does not make any sense. Anyways, Knuckles eventually ends up helping both Sonic and Tails to be able to reach Sky Sanctuary, because from there, they will be able to have the capabilities of stopping Robotnik and entering the Death Egg. Also, for the record, the reason why I'm probably going to be interchanging between Robotnik and Eggman is just that, you know, it's still the same dude, it's still the same name. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts. In the old days, he was called Dr. Ivo Robotnik. He still is called Dr. Ivo Robotnik, but he used to be just called Robotnik, but nowadays, we just call him Eggman. I'm not sure how the name change started. I do know that in Sonic Adventure 1 is kind of when they started to just strictly call him Eggman, and they didn't really bother to call him Robotnik anymore. Like, I know that in the cutscene, however, he basically says, I am Dr. Robotnik, and I, whatever, are gonna do something about whatever. And then Sonic is like, whatever you say, Eggman. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess that sticks. It's like, personally, I just didn't really care. It's like, it's still the same guy at the end of the day. It's just that he just looks designedly different. And after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and you manage to end up saving the day, you end up getting to play as Knuckles, which is supposed to be the prologue. Well, not the prologue. The what is it? The ending, the epilogue of the Sonic and 3 Knuckles game, because Knuckles' story takes place after Sonic and Tails' portion. So he essentially have to take care of Death Robo guy. He has to take care of that guy, and during that, he's basically ends up taking care of Dr. Robotnik's final creation, Mecha Sonic, which ends up utilizing the Master Emerald to go into Super Mecha Sonic. It's not really that big of a deal. He's kind of cool. I like him, and he's probably the only boss that you actually get the chance of obtaining a rings, which is weird. And Sonic's portion is you get to actually have one of the few times where having all the Chaos Emeralds rewards you with a true final boss, which is Death Egg Zone. Not Death Egg Zone, Doomsday Zone. Yeah, so it's interesting because in the level select, you can go ahead and gain access to the stage whenever. You don't even need the Chaos Emeralds for this. But this section is basically you have a total of 50 rings and you have to essentially stop Robotnik. That's pretty much it. The reason why this can be hard is because during the first phase of the fight, you probably don't really know that you can use the rockets to hit him, because like I said, there's no real hint system in the game. But I guess the thing is that you can probably figure that you need to toss the rockets back at his head. I don't know, because part of me is kind of wondering how many people kind of could figure that out, that you're supposed to directly let the rockets hit Eggman. The only time I can see this being a little bit of a hint or foreshadowing is the fact that, well, for one thing, Sonic can't even harm the damn thing, so I guess the only option is to use the rockets. And also, we had a boss fight in Lava Reef where Eggman's spike balls basically hit him to be able to have him take damage. That's really about it. Other than that, I don't really know what other hint kind of gives you the justification of utilizing the rockets to be able to go ahead and hit Robotnik. But once you end up destroying that, Robotnik would basically try to speed off. Now here, you just basically just keep mashing the speed up button, which is I guess the A button or whichever controller you're using. And that's pretty much it. You just hit him a bunch of times and then he just loses and you win. Congratulations, you beat the game. Now to have the other characters get in here, mainly Tails and also Amy Rose, if you're playing the Origins Plus collection, I should say, you have to use the level select. You can't really gain access to Doomsday Zone without using the level select. The reason is because both Amy and Tails never can go to Doomsday Zone. Sonic can, but not Tails or Amy. Knuckles already has a Doomsday Zone, is essentially the Sky Sanctuary. That is technically his Doomsday Zone. Unless he can get to Doomsday Zone, I never really bothered to really try that, if I'm being honest, because realistically, Sonic should be, it's probably weird for those characters to do it because they don't fly like that. Like, they don't like fly like Sonic. Also, I find that kind of a little bit misleading that Sonic can fly in Doomsday Zone, but he can't fly in the stages. What kind of sense does that even make? I don't really understand. Does Sonic just realize that, oh, I can fly? What? What do you mean? It doesn't make any sense. But after you end up managing to play those 3 games, you will then end up gaining access to Sonic CD. I don't know why I say gaining access. You can always play Sonic CD whenever. Now, Sonic CD is interesting. Like, I've always wanted to play this game when I found out its existence, but I never had the ability to. When I saw the Gems collection, there was a time when I wanted the game, but I didn't have the money to buy it. But there was one point where I found it in one store at a very cheap price. So then I got some money and then I basically bought the game because I really wanted to play the Sonic CD game. I don't know why. I guess I really wanted to play that game so much. And I'm glad I did. Unfortunately, I wish I was exposed to the European/Japanese soundtrack because the American soundtrack, it's okay. I mean, I thought it was okay when I first played it. I found the Robotnik boss music to be a little bit creepy, but hey, what are you gonna do? But no, I actually prefer the Japanese soundtrack over the American soundtrack, because the American soundtrack is also weird because the past version shares the same soundtrack from the European and the Japanese version, but for the present and future, they do not. They are completely different, and some of them are very hit and miss. Like I would end up admitting, some of them are very hit and miss. Nowadays, whenever I'm going to be playing CD, it's probably just going to be the Japanese, European soundtrack, if I'm being honest. Because it sounds a little bit more Sonic than the American version. Like I said, aside from the Robotnik boss theme, which I kind of feels a little bit better because it sounds more creepy in the American version than it does in the Japanese European version. And the Japanese European version sounds like a freaking workout, which, I mean, hey, if you want to use that song as a workout, go nuts. It's probably good considering the song is literally saying, work that sucker to death. Come on now.
Earth-true, fear, bold, brainy, cold-hearted, distance, little, wow. Power he possesses is incredible. He doesn't stand a chance.
Work that sucker to death. And I'm like, yep, this is definitely one of those kind of songs that you will probably end up playing in a gym. But no, Sonic CD was interesting. I didn't know the concept around the game. All I know is that I see these past and future signs, and I'm like, what are these about? And I thought the game was broke because like these rings were inside the stages, and I'm like, I think there's something wrong with the game, but that's fine. You want to know what also is kind of funny? When I got the special stage gems, the time stones, I was so confused because I was like, oh, I beat the game. Yay. It's like, did you beat the game? Dude, I don't know. It's like, I really don't know. Did I beat the game? Did I not beat the game? Because when I first played Sonic CD, the special stages were pretty easy. Like, I kind of found them easy. And then for some reason, when I played them on the Origin Collection, I don't know if it's because they run at 60 FPS or whatever, I just had a difficult time. I'm like, holy crap, how the hell did I manage to beat these when I first played the damn game? And the first time I played the game, I made them feel like they were super easy to do. Nowadays, it's like I'm playing them, it's like, damn, I'm literally getting my ass kicked. Luckily enough, you had the chance to retry it a bunch of times, but that doesn't really mean diddly squat when how difficult they were, because, like, they were not fun. So the special stages get unlocked the same way as they did in Sonic 1, where you have to collect 50 rings to be able to get to the end of the stage and jump into a big ring. But the special stages themselves are a little bit different. So essentially you're in a, not really a mode 7, kind of like a F-Zero kind of map. What is it? Like the, crap, what is it? Like, I forgot what the chip was called. Was it called the Mode 7? No, it's not the Mode 7 chip, is it? Whatever. Anyways, you're in kind of like in an F-Zero kind of view and whatever, and the goal is to destroy these UFOs. Once you destroy all the UFOs, you get the time stone. Problem is, the timer is in play here, and if you touch the water, your timer will gradually decrease. What's worse is that you do end up getting at least a time bonus if you hit the blue UFO. Now you're probably saying, why is that worse? Here's the kicker. If you miss this blue UFO and touch the water too many times, you probably will lose more time trying to hit the blue UFO than actually trying to hit the regular UFOs to finish the game. But hey, if you're good enough at it, you could probably end up doing some sort of route. All I know is that once you kind of get to like 6 or 5 or whatever, it kind of gets a little bit annoying. Especially one of them, which basically just has like a very terrible background to look at too much. Oh boy. But yeah, Sonic CD was a very interesting game. I did like the ending. I did like the song. I also like the little animated cutscene that you get and everything. But overall, it is one of those games that ends up introducing both Metal Sonic and Amy Rose, two characters that will obviously be brought back in future installments. Amy Rose coming back in Sonic Adventure 1, and Metal Sonic coming back in Sonic Heroes, which actually shocked the hell out of me when he actually came back in Sonic Heroes. My dumbass didn't know who the hell he was. Oh, man. Oh, I mean, to be fair, I was sick when I played Sonic Heroes, so I didn't really care for much for the opening. I was just more so excited to play it after playing the GameCube demo Seaside Hill a bunch of times. So when I finally got the chance to play it, I was like, yeah, this is a fun game. Little did I know, the PS2 version was the one that sucked. Even though I didn't really realize it at the time until I probably played it. Actually, to be fair, I'm pretty sure I didn't even know that it sucked. I just kept playing it anyways, because during that time, word of mouth with that kind of stuff didn't really come to me at all. The internet wasn't really the social media wasn't a full-blown thing, so trying to know if something sucked wasn't really there yet. Nowadays you can kind of look on like anything on social media related and find something that sucks, but hey, it is what it is. But I will end up saying this, after Sonic CD and playing through all the classic games, I did end up dabbling with like the Game Gear stuff. Didn't really like them. It's when I played the Sonic DX version where it ends up having the Game Gear games, and I just did not care for the Game Gear games at all. I don't really like any of them. But yeah, once I gotten my fill on the 3D side, or I should say on the 2D side of Sonic, that's when kind of the 3D games started to come into play. And this was super interesting because when social media started to make the rounds, a lot of people apparently didn't like Sonic in his 3D rendition or didn't like any of his friends. Me being me, I didn't really care. I actually found it very interesting to play these characters and to see Sonic jump into a 3D format because it was something new. Yeah, he had green eyes, which I didn't know that people actually cared about that either, considering he has green eyes when he goes super in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but whatever. Anyways, yeah, so they talk now. They all have voice acting, and that was something that kind of gravitated me to the 3D era of Sonic, was the fact that they talked. Now, it's not the first time Sonic has been in 3D. He was actually 3D in 3D Blast a little bit, and he was also 3D in this game called Sonic Jam, which is basically kind of like a little bit of a hub that you can just run around all over the place and play some Sonic games. But the official full exposure to 3D Sonic was, of course, Sonic Adventure 1. Now, this was the very huge jump. Like, you have Sonic looking cool, you had Tails looking cool, Knuckles gliding about, you had Amy Rose there, and you had Dr. Robotnik just chilling on the scene, looking all menacing and stuff. And damn, that game was cool. It's too bad I couldn't beat it when I first had the Dreamcast, because the people I was living with did not own a memory card. I do not know why 90% of the time they had no memory card. It confused the hell out of me. But you want to know what's the only interesting thing I can say about playing Sonic Adventure back then? Was the fact that when you got to meet a character and it says you can play as a character, you can quit the game and you can play as that character. The game doesn't save fully, mind you, but you can still play as that character anyways if you just quit Sonic's story for a bit and just jump into Tails or Knuckles or Amy or E103 Gamma or friggin' Big. Big was an interesting character because it was a fishing minigame, which basically took me right out. I didn't really have much issue with Big Fishing Adventure. It was more so the fact that I didn't know how to play the game. Like, that was the issue. It wasn't the fact that the mechanics were difficult. I didn't know what the hell you were supposed to do. And mind you, this is coming from a person who's already played like Ocarina of Time's fishing crap or any other game that had a fishing mechanic. It wasn't as simple as, oh, you wait for the bite and then you start reeling them in. No, you have to kind of like wait for like you can't like go too fast or else the friggin' rope will snap and then Big will become sad and you'll lose a life somehow. I don't know how you die from that, but I'm like, you know what, that's chill. I mean, to be fair, I know why. He lost literally the rope, so it's like, what else is he gonna do? It's still stupid though. I'm not gonna go ahead and sit here and say it's not dumb. It's still pretty dumb. Oh man. But no, like, Sonic Adventure was such an interesting game. Like, you didn't have, like, it wasn't like the traditional classical games where you kind of go from stages to collect rings to be able to get the special stages. No, you kind of had like these mini missions that you had to do for each character. Sonic's story was more high speed, so all of his levels was basically speeding through segments with certain platforming segments to boot. With Tails' story more so focusing on racing characters, but was a little bit of a shorter game. Knuckles was also a shorter game, but his gimmick was basically finding Chaos Emeralds throughout the stages. Amy had to essentially escape from a random robot that kept chasing after her. And E103 Gamma was basically, or is it E103? No, I think it's E102 Gamma. I forgot his name. I'm just going to call him Gamma. Gamma had to essentially end up doing a shoot 'em up section. It was in 3D, mind you, but it was also super fast a little bit here and there. His goal was essentially trying to release his brothers or his brothers and sisters from captivity. Now, at first, when I first played that, and when he said that such and such, because his victory quote was like his whatever robot series it was captured or rescued, I was so confused because I'm like, rescued, dude, you blew him up. How is he how is he rescued? And then I kind of tend to forget that these robots have animals inside them, and I always forget that because it's like, right, these robots are not like robots, they're controlled by animals somehow, which I don't really know how that works. But yeah, so when the ending happened with Gamma, I was like, wait, is that a good thing? It's like, oh, they got released. Oh my god. It wasn't until I got older until I actually found that out. As a kid, I was so confused. You have to realize that I was dumb. And Big's venture is essentially basically you're fishing for his friend Froggy throughout 5 or 4 stages, and his story is relatively short. But once you manage to end up completing all those characters' storylines, you'll end up getting access to Super Sonic, which is essentially the final stage of the game. You don't get an actual level, you just get a bunch of cutscenes, some lore, and a boss fight with Super Sonic, I should say. And I like that. Now, this is kind of how most of the 3D games kind of play out, where you kind of have to do a story, you have to do the whole story for certain types of characters and whatnot, and then you gain access to Super Sonic. Unless you're Sonic Heroes, which for some reason wanted to go back to the days of old, where you had to go ahead and collect the key, and you can't get hit, which was so stupid. You can't get hit. If you get hit, you basically lose out on the friggin' special stage. And it was interesting. The best option to be able to get these special stages done was to use Team Rose, because you had 4 teams. You had Team Sonic, Team Dark, Team Rose, and Team Chaotic. Team Sonic was essentially more so the high-speed action. Team Dark ends up having basically a buttload of more enemies and more difficult platforming segments. Team Rose was the easy mode, and also the tutorial zone, which is funny. And Team Chaotic was basically more so mission based, some of them being easy and some of them being annoying, to the point that they basically said, hey, let's make Shadow the Hedgehog that. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. But yeah, and then there was obviously Sonic Adventure 2, and this was the start of where a lot of people started to shift to different favoritisms. People basically was like, Sonic is too boring. I like Shadow the Hedgehog better. And I can understand. Shadow is cool. I personally didn't give a damn about him when he like friggin' kicked the bucket, but he was cool. I like that he was just basically just a rival Sonic, and then coming to find out that he was actually not supposed to get brought back was kind of interesting, because I'm like, I didn't know that. I mean, I'm glad that he's back, because there are people who like him, and it's just unfortunate because whenever you have these characters that needs to be brought back, trying to explain it is kind of difficult because it can be a little bit messy. But no, my history with Sonic is like kind of like stems from so far. Like obviously the latest game I played was Sonic Frontiers. I tried playing Super Saga Stars or whatever it's called, but I don't know. I guess it's like whenever Sonic is in 2D, but he has 3D in it. It's like a 3D model. I don't know. It just puts me off, I guess. I don't really know. I have to play the game to probably appreciate it. Maybe I'll play it on stream or something, but I just wanted to kind of just do like a 50-minute video of me talking about Sonic. Wow. All right. Anyways, I just wanted to make a video about this because, I mean, I was thinking of doing a retrospective video of this, but in reality, it didn't even make any sense. In fact, what's funny is I kind of already talked about the points of the 4 games in the collection, The collection also ends up having some more stuff that you can do. You have like the boss rush mode, which you end up having like no rings for that, so that's always difficult. Then you have like a little bit of mission mode, and then you had mirror mode. Mirror mode is, I thought it was literally going to be playing the game in the reverse segment. It is not. It's literally just, they literally deadass just mirrored the game. So instead of going right, you're going left, which I guess is kind of what mirror mode is supposed to be. It's not like you're going the opposite direction. I was kind of wishing that it was going the opposite direction, if I'm being honest, but it's not, which makes me sad. But you know what? It's fine. I mean, Mario Kart wasn't like that, so why the hell should this be? You know. But yeah, Sonic is a big part of my life. I maybe don't talk about it that much because trying to talk about stuff on the internet is a hit and miss for me. Because I don't try to force it, is the thing. Because the minute I force it is the minute I dislike it. That's why when I wanted to get to this video, I didn't want to force myself to do something that I know that I wouldn't end up liking. So rather than doing the retrospective, which I was going to hate, I'd rather do it this way. This was actually fun for me to talk about. And to be able to go ahead and talk about my love for this damn blue bastard who ends up having a very good philosophy. No matter how hard your games may be bad, you can still get back up to try your best to make things better. And we had that with Sonic Frontiers after the shitstorm that was Sonic Forces. But anyways, I've been Pika, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next electrifying video. You guys go and stay safe out there and take care of yourself. Laters.